The neon lights of the bustling nightclub flickered ominously as a sudden hush fell over the crowd. A figure in a shimmering cloak, barely visible under the dim lighting, approached the bar. The bartender, distracted by the commotion at the door, nearly missed the peculiar request, a round of drinks, for the stranger who just entered. Glancing up, he caught sight of an ethereal face with hauntingly beautiful eyes that seemed to shimmer under the artificial glow. His heart raced as he wondered if this was the rumored dragon woman everyone had been talking about. The stranger's gaze swept across the room, landing on a nervous-looking man sitting by himself in a corner booth. For a moment, his green eyes widened before narrowing suspiciously, taking in the unusual companion who had just ordered for him. He hastily downed his drink and tried to make himself inconspicuous, but it was too late. "Over here," called a smooth voice from behind the bar, causing the man to flinch. He turned to see the bartender nodding towards his booth, signaling that his date had arrived. The man's jaw clenched as he realized that despite his reluctance, something or someone had decided for him tonight. The dragon woman glided silently into the light, her steps barely audible on the tiled floor. She moved with a grace that seemed unnatural to human eyes, and as she drew closer, the crowd parted slightly, as if granting her an unspoken respect. The man's pulse quickened, not just from fear, but from an inexplicable curiosity mixed with dread. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, her voice like liquid silk, sliding into the booth opposite him. Her eyes held a mix of hope and sorrow that made him squirm uncomfortably. He stammered out a reply. Yeah, I mean sure." Bartender delivered the drinks, giving them a sympathetic look before retreating to serve other customers. The man took a sip of his whiskey, eyeing the dragon woman with increasing unease. Her presence was overpowering yet strangely enticing, making it hard for him to focus on anything else. "What is this?" he asked bluntly, his fingers tightening around the glass. "A chance," she replied, her expression unreadable. "A chance at what?" His voice rose an octave, drawing a few curious glances from nearby patrons. "To know if you deserve joy," she said quietly, almost imperceptibly leaning in as if sharing a secret. He swallowed hard, feeling a chill run down his spine. Joy? That word echoed through his mind, bringing back memories of a life he had long since given up on. The idea was absurd yet tantalizing. "Why me?" he managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, a small, sad smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I choose you because you need it most." The man's gaze darted around the room again, looking for an escape route, but it was too late. The dragon woman's eyes held him captive, drawing him deeper into the strange and unsettling situation. "Why not just leave?" he blurted out, his resolve faltering. Her expression darkened, her eyes flashing with a dangerous intensity that made him flinch back. "Because fate has led us here," she murmured, as if to herself. The room buzzed around them like a swarm of angry bees, the lights flickering more erratically now. The dragon woman seemed unaffected by the chaos, but the man felt his anxiety mounting. He tried to think of ways out of this bizarre arrangement, but no escape route presented itself. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room as a vase shattered behind them. They both turned to see a bouncer wrestling with a drunk patron who had broken a priceless antique. The momentary distraction gave the man an idea. "Listen," he said quickly, leaning forward and lowering his voice. "I need to get out of here. This was just a setup. I have to go." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "You don't want to know?" She paused, her tone softer but no less commanding. "Or do you just refuse?" "I'm not refusing," he stammered, trying to keep his voice steady. Just before he could finish, she placed a hand on his arm, sending an unexpected jolt of energy through him. He jerked back, eyes wide with shock. "You have your reasons," she continued calmly, her touch lingering. "But tonight is not about you walking away. It's about facing what's been pushed aside." He shuddered at her words, feeling a surge of conflicting emotions: fear, desire, and a strange yearning he couldn't quite grasp. Why do you care?" he asked finally, his voice barely audible. Her eyes softened again, and for the first time he saw a flicker of genuine emotion, something that felt like compassion. "Because," she whispered, "I understand." Understanding. The word resonated deep within him, stirring something long dormant. He'd feel her presence encroaching on his mind, probing gently, seeking permission to delve deeper. "What do you mean?" he choked out, struggling against the sudden pressure of her gaze. "I mean," she said slowly, "that your pain is as real as mine." He stared at her, dumbfounded. There was something ancient and profound in her words, something that hinted at a depth beyond human comprehension. She was from another world, yet connected to his in ways he couldn't fathom. "Tell me," she urged, her voice soft but compelling. He hesitated, his mind racing with 1,000 reasons to resist. But there was something irresistible about her invitation, a promise of understanding that had him leaning in without conscious thought. "Okay," he whispered finally, the words tasting bitter yet somehow sweet. She nodded, her eyes closing briefly as if in approval. When they opened again, they held a new intensity of fire that seemed to burn through the shadowy corners of his soul. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of years of unspoken pain pressed down on him. The dragon woman was right. This wasn't just about walking away tonight. It was about confronting the shadows he had tried so hard to avoid. "Complicated," he began, but found himself unable to stop once he started talking. She listened intently, her hand still resting lightly on his arm, a constant source of comfort and encouragement. He spoke of loss and heartbreak, of sacrifices made and dreams shattered. Each word felt like a burden lifted, revealing hidden wounds that had long since scarred over. Yet, as much as he poured out his secrets, there was an odd sense of lightness within him, as if the act of sharing was itself a form of healing. It was then that he noticed the room around them had grown still and quiet, even the club's vibrant atmosphere seeming to dim in deference to their conversation. The dragon woman's eyes held an intensity that made him pause. "And what about joy?" she asked gently, prompting him to look at her again. "Joy?" he echoed, feeling lost in his own thoughts. "Yes," she nodded, her voice barely more than a whisper now. "Do you think you deserve it?" He blinked, the question catching him off guard. Deserve? The concept was foreign, almost laughable considering where his life had led him. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. She sighed, an understanding smile playing at her lips. "Let's find out together," she offered. The sincerity in her eyes made him hesitate, but there was something compelling about her offer that silenced his protests. Slowly, he nodded, feeling a thread of hope begin to weave through the tangled remnants of his despair. "All right," he said, finding his voice. "Let's see what happens." Her smile widened slightly, and for a moment, there was a warmth in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. "Good," she replied, her tone softening. "Now, let's start with something simple." Before he could ask, the dragon woman reached into her cloak and pulled out a small vial filled with shimmering liquid, a color impossible to define yet mesmerizing to behold. She uncorked it with a flourish, holding it up for him to see. "Do you trust me?" she asked, the light from the vial reflecting off her eyes. Trusting someone he barely knew was risky, but something in her gaze told him that she understood the stakes better than anyone else ever had. Swallowing hard, he nodded. "Yes," he said, feeling the word weigh heavy on his tongue. She smiled, a warm and reassuring expression. "Then take this. It's the first step." Without another word, she held out the vial, her hand steady and sure. He took it from her, the glass cool against his fingers. The liquid within swirled, undulating with an ethereal glow that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "What is it?" he asked nervously, eyeing the bottle warily. "A reminder," she said softly, "of what you are capable of." He stared at her, confusion and fear battling in his chest as the weight of her words sank in. This was more than just a potion or elixir, it was an invitation into uncharted territory, a promise of transformation. "Are you sure about this?" he asked again, his voice trembling. She nodded, her eyes holding an intensity that spoke volumes. "Absolutely." With a deep breath, he uncorked the vial and hesitated for another moment before tipping it to his lips. The liquid was icy cold against his tongue, sending a chill through him as it slid down his throat. For a second, everything froze. Then, the world around them seemed to shift, colors deepening, sounds amplifying. A sensation like being reborn surged through him, washing away layers of pain and doubt with each passing moment. The dragon woman watched intently, her expression one of quiet wonder as she observed the changes. "What's happening?" he gasped, feeling a strange mix of awe and fear. "You're remembering," she murmured, her voice soft but firm. "Remembering who you truly are." He glanced down at his hands, seeing them blur before his eyes as if through a kaleidoscope. The edges of the world began to shimmer, the lines between reality and imagination blurring in ways that made his head spin. "Who am I?" he whispered, clutching the vial tightly. "You are someone who deserves more," she replied, her voice steady but filled with an unspoken promise. "Someone who will find joy again." The room spun around them, the lights flickering in a dizzying pattern as if the nightclub itself was trying to keep up with their transformation. The dragon woman's eyes never left his face, studying him intently, waiting for something to happen. "I don't understand," he stammered, feeling disoriented and yet oddly invigorated at the same time. She smiled gently, her hand reaching out to rest on his shoulder once more. "It's okay," she said soothingly. "This isn't a test. It's a journey." Her touch sent another jolt through him, stronger this time. The feeling was both grounding and exhilarating, like walking into a familiar place after being away for far too long. Memories that had been buried for years began to rise, not just of past pain, but of forgotten joys and possibilities. "Are you ready?" she asked softly, her eyes intense and focused. He nodded, his heart racing as the world continued to shift around them. "Yes," he said firmly, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The dragon woman's smile widened, a glint of something primal and ancient in her gaze that made him shiver with both fear and anticipation. "Then let's begin." Before he could respond, she leaned forward, her lips brushing against his cheek in an almost imperceptible kiss. The moment their skin touched, it felt like a spark ignited within him, spreading warmth and energy through his body. "What was that?" he gasped, looking at her with wide eyes. "An offering," she said simply, her gaze never wavering. "To begin the journey." The room spun even faster now, colors bleeding into each other and sounds blending into a symphony of unfamiliar tones. The dragon woman's presence was an anchor amidst the chaos, guiding him through the tumultuous sea of transformation. "We are going to walk through this together," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the confusion. "Okay," he whispered, his own resolve strengthening with each moment. As the nightclub faded into a surreal dance of light and sound around them, the dragon woman's hand tightened briefly on his shoulder. "You're ready now," she said softly, her eyes shining with an inner light that seemed to match the glow emanating from him. And then everything shifted again, more dramatically this time. The room around them blurred into a hazy backdrop, leaving only the two of them in a liminal space between reality and dreams. The dragon woman's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she spoke. "We will face your fears," she began, her voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of power. "We will reclaim what was lost." He nodded, feeling the weight of his burdens begin to lift, replaced by a strange sense of liberation and resolve. "And we'll find joy," he murmured, meeting her gaze. She smiled softly, the first genuine smile she had given him since they met. "Yes," she said simply, "we will." With that, the room began to shift again, colors swirling and sounds blending into a surreal symphony that seemed to echo the promise of new beginnings. The dragon woman stood up, her hand reaching out to take his once more. "Ready?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with an unexpected warmth. He nodded resolutely, feeling both fear and excitement wash over him. "Yes," he said, finding strength in her presence. As they stepped out of the booth together, the nightclub behind them began to fade into a dreamlike haze. The dragon woman led him through the shifting reality, guiding him towards an unknown but hopeful horizon. The final scene dissolved into a kaleidoscope of possibilities, leaving the man with an inexplicable sense of anticipation and hope. And there, standing at the threshold of the uncertain yet wondrous future, he turned to look at her once more. Her eyes gleamed with the promise of adventures yet to come, and he knew without a doubt that whatever awaited them beyond this moment would be worth facing. The story ends here, but the journey continues into the unknown, into the realm of joy regained and dreams reclaimed. Chapter 6: Reclaiming the Past. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that played tricks on human eyes. They made their way through a dense thicket of alien flora tendrils and leaves that shimmered with an eerie glow in the dark. Zara's guide, a mysterious figure clad in iridescent armor, led them deeper into the forest. "Is this really necessary?" Aiden whispered, glancing back at the distant city they had left behind. The sight of it, glowing softly in the dusk, sparked a pang of longing and unease. He trusted Zara and the dragon woman's word that returning was the only option, but it still felt like turning away from safety. "Necessary," the guide confirmed without looking back, her voice a ghostly whisper carried by the wind. "The path to what you seek lies through here." Aiden exchanged glances with Zara. She nodded slightly, her face grave but resolute. His heart hammered in his chest. The mixture of adrenaline and dread fueled him. They entered He thicket proper, the underbrush dense enough to obscure everything beyond a few feet. Chapter 7: Shadows of the Mind. Aiden's hands trembled as he gripped Zara's tightly. She had fallen back into her role as the silent guardian, but there was an intensity in her eyes that spoke volumes without words. The forest around them seemed to shift and change, the landscape morphing into a labyrinthine network of shadowy pathways and eerie shapes. It was as if they had entered another realm entirely. "Do you sense it too?" Aiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara didn't respond, but she squeezed his hand, her way of letting him know he wasn't alone. A sudden chill swept over them, and the wind carried with it a faint whispering of ancient memories and long-forgotten dreams. Aiden felt his mind tingle with the sensation, each cell absorbing the eerie echo that resonated through the air. It was like the forest itself had memory, holding on to echoes from the past. The air thickened around them, taking on an ethereal quality. The guide seemed to grow even more insubstantial, her outline blurring as if she were fading into the very fabric of the surrounding environment. "Follow closely," she intoned, her voice now a distant echo. Aiden and Zara moved faster, their hearts pounding in synchrony with each step they took deeper into the darkening forest. Chapter 8: The Encounter. Moonlight began to filter through the thick canopy above, casting silvery patterns that danced across the ground like liquid silver. As the light grew stronger, strange symbols started to appear on the bark of trees and leaves, glyphs and runes Aiden had never seen before but somehow felt intimately familiar. A shiver ran down his spine as he realized these weren't just markings, they were a language of some kind, a secret code etched into the very fabric of this place. Suddenly, out of the shadows stepped a figure that halted their progress in its tracks, a dragon woman. Her scales shimmered with an iridescent sheen under the moonlight, and her gaze was piercing. She had two pairs of eyes, one set large and round, the other small and sharp. The second pair gleamed like twin stars, reflecting the emotions she kept hidden from human eyes. At the moment, They burned with a fierce intensity. Aiden felt a jolt of recognition, and fear wash over him. It was the same dragon woman who had kidnapped them back on Earth. "Why are you here?" she demanded, her voice echoing through the forest like thunder. "You should not be here." "We need to go back," Zara answered firmly, stepping forward. "You know why we must return." The dragon woman's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, a rumble shook the ground, and the trees began to sway violently. The landscape shifted once more, this time revealing something from beyond alien entities that emerged from shadows and darkness, their forms indistinct and terrifying. "Stay close," Zara murmured, tightening her grip on Aiden's hand. "You can't let him take us." Chapter 9: Betrayal and Resolve. Aiden tried to hold on to the sense of urgency that burned in his chest, but fear began to seep through the cracks of his resolve. The encroaching darkness felt almost tangible, pressing against them with a will of its own. He glanced up at Zara, whose calm exterior belied the turmoil within her. Her eyes flicked between him and the threatening shadows, calculating their next move. "Can you tell me what's happening?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Who are those things?" Zara hesitated, biting her lip, a rare show of vulnerability from her usually composed self. She glanced at the dragon woman, who still watched them with that unnerving intensity. "They are guardians of this realm," the dragon woman finally spoke up. "Entities that patrol the borders between dimensions. And you are trespassing." "But we need to go back," Aiden insisted, his voice rising slightly. "We're supposed to stop something terrible from happening." The dragon woman's eyes narrowed further, but there was a hint of something else in her gaze, no flicker of sympathy or regret. "Do not misunderstand," she said, her tone softening marginally. "Stopping what you speak of is indeed your goal, but the path you choose to take is fraught with peril." Aiden swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling heavily on his shoulders. If even she doubted their mission, what hope did they have? "I don't know what we're getting into," he admitted, more to himself than anyone else. "But I can't just let it be." Zara squeezed his hand again, her grip reassuring. "Then neither can I." Chapter 10: The Guardian's Revelation. The dragon woman stepped closer, her iridescent scales glistening in the moonlight. Aiden felt a strange sense of familiarity wash over him as she spoke. "You are bound to each other by more than just fate," she began, her voice a gentle murmur that carried through the dense forest. "Your connection runs deeper than you can imagine." Aiden glanced at Zara, whose eyes reflected the same wonder and confusion he felt. The dragon woman's words were like a key turning in a lock, unlocking something previously hidden within him, memories of shared dreams, fragments of conversations they had never spoken aloud. "Your journey is not just about stopping a looming disaster," she continued, her tone growing more urgent. "It is about reclaiming your true selves, about understanding the very essence of who you are and why you were chosen." Aiden felt the ground shift beneath his feet once more as reality wavered around them. The forest seemed to bend and twist, creating a surreal landscape that made him question everything he had ever known. "What do you mean?" Zara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are we meant to understand?" The dragon woman's gaze turned piercing, and she held up her hand, revealing intricate carvings on her scales, an ancient code etched into the flesh of both human and dragon alike. Aiden felt his heart skip a beat as he realized this was more than just a guide or protector. She was a messenger, a conduit between worlds. "Trust in your connection," she urged, her eyes locking with each of theirs in turn, "for it is the only thing strong enough to carry you through what lies ahead." As if on cue, the darkness around them began to swirl and churn, like a maelstrom closing in. The dragon woman nodded gravely and stepped back, leaving them standing alone amidst the encroaching void. Chapter 11: Crossing the Threshold. The world around Aiden seemed to blur into a chaotic dance of light and shadow. The forest was no longer the familiar thicket of twisted branches, and eerie luminescency had transformed into an abyssal expanse, a churning sea of dark energy that threatened to swallow them whole. Aiden's heart raced as he clung to Zara, their hands entwined tightly against the onslaught. "This is it," she murmured, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We have to keep moving forward." They forged ahead through the tempest, each step harder than the last as the ground beneath them gave way and reformed unpredictably. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom, but there was also an undercurrent of determination. Zara's hand in his was a beacon of hope amidst the storm. Suddenly, the darkness seemed to coalesce into something tangibly, a portal swirling with chaotic energy, its edges searing with raw power. They skidded to a stop, eyeing the threshold warily. The dragon woman reappeared briefly, her eyes blazing with urgency. "Beyond this lies the key to your destiny," she intoned, her voice cutting through the chaos. "But be prepared for what awaits you on the other side." And then she was gone, leaving them alone once more amidst the roiling tempest. Aiden felt a surge of unease as they approached the portal, a foreboding sense of danger and unknown peril. "Are we really ready for this?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of the storm. Zara's grip tightened on his hand. "We're all we have," she replied firmly. "Let's go." With a collective breath, they stepped into the swirling vortex, the world around them dissolving into pure chaos as reality bent to accommodate their passage. Chapter 12: The Hall of Reflections. The instant Aiden and Zara crossed the threshold, the chaos faded, revealing a realm unlike any other. They found themselves in what appeared to be an ancient template's walls, made of shimmering obsidian and adorned with intricate carvings that pulsed with an eerie light. At the center of this hall stood a vast reflective pool, its surface perfectly still and mirror-like. Aiden's breath caught as he gazed into the pool's reflections. They were not of the physical world, but rather a tapestry of memories and dreams. Scenes from his life flashed before his eyes, moments of joy and sorrow, triumphs and failures, all intertwined in a web of intricate connections. He saw himself as a child with Zara in the background, barely noticed, but present nonetheless. Then moments where they shared quiet moments of intimacy despite the chaos around them. Zara's reflection beside his showed her own moments of fierce determination, moments of vulnerability and fear. Their reflections seemed to merge and diverge, creating a complex dance of interwoven lives. "What is this place?" Aiden murmured, his voice barely audible in the hushed silence of the hall. "This is the Hall of Reflections," Zara replied, her eyes fixed on their shared reflection. "It shows us the threads that connect our past and present." Aiden's gaze fell to the ground, where symbols and patterns were etched into the obsidian tiles, ancient runes and cryptic instructions. The air buzzed with an undercurrent of power, as if this place held secrets waiting to be unlocked. As they ventured deeper, a voice echoed through the hall, its source indiscernible yet omnipresent. "To understand yourselves fully, you must face what lies within." Aiden felt a surge of dread at the implications of those words. The hall seemed to shift and change, reflecting an array of possible futures and pasts, each scenario more complex than the last. They moved carefully, Zara's hand still firmly clasped in his, navigating this labyrinthine realm with each step fraught with potential peril. Chapter 13: The Mirror Maze. The reflection in the pool began to distort, merging and separating their individual identities into a dizzying array of fragmented selves. Aiden saw multiple versions of himself, all reflecting different facets of his personality and experiences, some triumphant, others lost and uncertain. Zara's reflections mirrored this phenomenon, her many selves interwoven with his. "Each reflection is a possible outcome," Zara explained, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of echoes. "But we must find the true path that leads us to understanding." As they moved further into the hall, the walls began to morph into shifting mazes of mirrors, each reflection seeming to whisper secrets and warnings. The air crackled with latent power and the reflections responded, showing glimpses of what lay ahead. "You must face your fears," a disembodied voice intoned, its source indiscernible yet unmistakably present. "Only then can you forge a path forward." Aiden felt a shiver run down his spine as the first set of mirrors began to shift and reconfigure themselves into a complex labyrinth. Each turn seemed to lead them deeper into an intricate network of twisting corridors, each reflection showing different aspects of their lives, some positive, others dark and threatening. Zara's grip on Aiden tightened as they navigated the maze, her eyes scanning each reflection for signs of danger or potential paths forward. "Stay focused," she murmured, her voice firm but tinged with apprehension. "Every choice we make here shapes our future." Chapter 14. Deciphering the code. The shifting mirrors began to display cryptic symbols and ancient runes etched into their surface patterns that seemed to shimmer with a latent energy. Aiden's eyes strained to decipher the enigmatic script, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of what he saw. "Look," Zara said suddenly, pointing to a set of panels on one wall. The symbols there pulsed gently, inviting them closer. Aiden approached warily, running his fingers over the etchings and feeling a jolt of recognition at their touch. They seemed to hold hidden meaning, waiting for the right key to unlock their secrets. "Could these be the instructions?" he asked, tracing the pattern with his finger. "They look familiar somehow." Zara nodded, her eyes narrowing as she studied the symbols. "This is the code," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "It's how we navigate this place." Together, they began to decipher the pattern, some symbol at a time, piecing together fragments of information that gradually revealed the path forward. The air buzzed with latent energy as their minds merged in understanding, each revelation bringing them closer to grasping the true nature of their journey. With every new insight, the reflections around them shifted and realigned, showing glimpses of what lay ahead, both potential victories and dark pitfalls. Aiden felt a growing sense of urgency as they delved deeper into the maze, each choice more crucial than the last. "Do you feel it?" Zara asked, her eyes locked on the shifting symbols. "The thread that connects us?" Aiden nodded, his heart racing. He could sense the underlying connection, no resonance that echoed through every decision and discovery they made together. It was a bond forged in the crucible of shared trials and triumphs. Chapter 15. The Dark Heart. As Aiden and Zara navigated deeper into the Hall of Reflections, the air thickened with an oppressive weight of darkness. The reflections in the mirrors began to distort, showing fragmented images that twisted reality itself. Shadows crept along the walls, seeping into cracks and crevices until they seemed to take on a life of their own. "Something isn't right," Zara whispered, her grip tightening on Aiden's hand. "The darkness is growing." Aiden felt a chill run down his spine as he gazed into the pool once more. Reflections, now showing visions of despair and hopelessness. They were not just echoes of past experiences, but glimpses of future horrors waiting to be unleashed. "Do you see what I do?" Zara asked, her voice trembling slightly. Aiden nodded grimly, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of the foreboding images. Each reflection seemed to whisper secrets and warnings, urging them to take a different path or face dire consequences. "Is there a way out of this darkness?" Aiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Or are we trapped here forever?" Zara's eyes narrowed as she studied the shifting symbols and patterns on the walls, cryptic runes that pulsed with latent energy. She suddenly stumbled upon a set of panels that glowed faintly, their surface etched with a code that seemed to resonate with her touch. "We need to decipher this," she said urgently, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns. "It's our only hope." Chapter 16. The Mirror Guardian. Aiden and Zara approached the glowing panel with growing apprehension, the shifting mirrors around them seeming to whisper ominous warnings. As they reached the panel, a sudden shift in the air brought a figure into stark relief, Yef, a massive mirror guardian, its form hewn from reflective obsidian that shimmered with an eerie light. Its eyes, twin orbs of polished silver, locked onto Aiden and Zara with an intense, piercing gaze. The guardian's voice echoed through the hall, each word laden with ancient authority. "Only those who understand the code may pass," it intoned, its voice a chilling resonance that reverberated through their minds. "Prove yourselves worthy." Aiden felt a surge of uncertainty as he glanced back at Zara, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. They needed to decipher this code quickly before the Guardian's presence grew overwhelming. "Focus," Zara urged, her voice steady despite the tension. "We need to find the pattern." They began tracing the symbols on the panel, their fingers moving in tandem as they sought out the underlying sequence. The air buzzed with latent energy, and the reflections around them shifted and realigned, showing glimpses of what lay ahead, both potential victories and dark pitfalls. Chapter 17: The Revelation. With a sudden burst of insight, Aiden and Zara found the right combination, a sequence that resonated with latent power. As they completed the pattern, the panel glowed brightly, casting a warm light throughout the hall. The shifting mirrors steadied, each one now reflecting a clear path forward. "Do you see it?" Zara asked, her eyes wide with amazement as she gazed into their reflections. "It's there." Aiden followed her gaze, his heart pounding in his chest as he saw the clarity of the reflection, their true selves revealed without distortion or shadow. The dark heart of the hall began to recede, its oppressive presence fading as understanding dawned. "What does it mean?" Aiden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is this our destiny?" Zara's grip tightened on his hand, her eyes locking onto his with unwavering determination. "It means we've found the key," she replied firmly. "But there's more to understand." The Guardian's form began to dissolve, its presence receding into the background as Aiden and Zara took another step forward. The reflection in the pool now showed not just visions of past and future, but an intricate web of connections that bound them together. Chapter 18: The Final Challenge. As the oppressive darkness receded, Aiden and Zara found themselves standing before a set of obsidian steps leading up to a massive door adorned with intricate carvings. The air buzzed with latent power, and the reflections in the mirrors around them showed glimpses of a final challenge, a test that could only be overcome through understanding and unity. "Are you ready for this?" Zara asked, her voice steady but tinged with apprehension. Aiden nodded, his heart racing as he gazed at the door ahead. He felt a sense of foreboding mixed with determination. Every step they had taken thus far had led to this moment, and there was no turning back now. "We must," he replied firmly. "It's the only way forward." Together, they approached the massive door, its surface etched with cryptic runes that pulsed gently in their presence. The air around them seemed to hum with an undercurrent of power, resonance that echoed through their minds, urging them onward. Aiden took a deep breath and reached out to touch the carvings, feeling a jolt of recognition at their touch. The door began to open slowly, revealing an inner chamber filled with an array of shifting mirrors and reflections that seemed to whisper secrets and warnings. "Stay focused," Zara urged, her eyes fixed on the shifting patterns. "We must navigate this final challenge together." As they stepped inside, the chamber began to shift and realign, creating a labyrinthine network of pathways and obstacles, each one requiring both mental acuity and physical dexterity to overcome. The reflections in the mirrors around them showed glimpses of what lay ahead, both potential victories and dark pitfalls. Chapter 19: The Heart of Reality. The chamber inside was a swirling vortex of obsidian and shimmering light, the shifting mirrors creating a labyrinthine network of passageways that seemed to twist and turn in unpredictable ways. Aiden felt a surge of unease as he gazed around, the reflections showing myriad possible futures, some promising and others fraught with peril. "Do you see it?" Zara asked, her voice steady but tinged with apprehension. "Each path is a potential outcome." Aiden nodded grimly, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of the shifting patterns. Each reflection seemed to whisper secrets and warnings, urging them to take a different path or face dire consequences. "Is there one clear path?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Or are we meant to choose?" Zara's eyes narrowed as she studied the shifting symbols and patterns on the walls, cryptic runes that pulsed with latent energy. She suddenly stumbled upon a set of panels that glowed faintly, their surface etched with a code that seemed to resonate with her touch. "We need to decipher this," she said urgently, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns. "It's our only hope." Chapter 20: The Final Reflection. As Aiden and Zara navigated deeper into the labyrinthine chamber, the reflections in the mirrors began to converge on a single, crucial decision, a moment where the fate of their journey hung in the balance. The air buzzed with latent power, and the symbols. Chapter 20: The Final Reflection. As Aiden and Zara navigated deeper into the labyrinthine chamber, the reflections in the mirrors began to converge on a single, crucial decision, a moment where the fate of their journey hung in the balance. They had seen many reflections up until now, each one more perplexing than the last, but none with the weight of this one. The room was circular, its walls composed entirely of highly polished mirror, reflecting images that flickered like shadows in a dream. Every conceivable outcome was laid out before them, yet it all seemed to point back to this singular moment. Aiden and Zara halted abruptly when they saw themselves at the center of the chamber, their reflections merging into one figure standing before Another, a creature neither had seen before, a woman who was half dragon and half human. Her hair flowed like molten silver across her shoulders, and her eyes were a deep sapphire that seemed to see straight into their souls. She held out her hand, not in a gesture of menace, but of invitation. "Choose wisely," she whispered, her breath warm against their faces through the reflection. "Your path splits here." Aiden's heart pounded with dread and anticipation. He turned to Zara, who nodded silently, understanding the gravity of what they faced. "Do this," she murmured. They stepped forward and took the woman's hand, feeling the warmth of her palm sear through their gloves, a connection that seemed to pulse directly into their hearts. The room began to spin. Aiden closed his eyes for a moment, only to be engulfed in darkness before being swept back into light. The chamber had shifted around them, the walls now made of shimmering obsidian that swallowed all light. Before them, the dragon woman stood as solid as ever, though she now seemed to pulse with an inner radiance. "We are at the end of this journey," she said, her voice low and resonant. "The fate of your world hangs in the balance." Aiden swallowed hard, his grip tightening on Zara's hand. "What must we do?" She stepped aside, revealing another mirror behind her, but it was different from the others. This one was cracked, like a web spun from glass. "Cross through here and make your decision." "Is there no other way?" Aiden asked, his eyes fixed on the jagged edges that crisscrossed the mirror's surface. The dragon woman's lips curved into a sad smile. "Your paths are intertwined now. To reach what you seek, you must also risk breaking apart." Zara took a deep breath, letting go of Aiden's hand for just a moment to grasp his forearm instead. "We've faced worse," she said quietly, her grip reassuring. Aiden nodded, stepping forward and placing his hand over hers again. Together, they pressed their palms against the mirror's surface. The edges crackled with energy, but the sensation was oddly warm, almost welcoming. They stepped through into a blinding white light, which faded as quickly as it had appeared to reveal a new chamber. This room was different. It was smaller, dimly lit, and filled with a sense of intimacy that the vast, reflective halls had never captured. The dragon woman was still there, but now she was closer, almost ethereal in her presence. She placed one hand on Zara's shoulder and the other on Aiden's chest, looking directly into each of their eyes. "Your decision is not about what you will do," she began, her voice soft yet compelling. "It is about who you are at your core." Aiden felt a strange warmth spreading through him, and he could see Zara mirroring his reaction. It was as if the dragon woman's touch had unlocked something deep within them, some long, buried truth. "You have faced trials that would break lesser beings," she continued. "Your journey is about more than just saving your world. It's about finding yourselves." Aiden and Zara exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. In this moment, they both knew they had come to rely on each other more than they ever thought possible. They had faced countless dangers together, but it was through their partnership that they had grown. The dragon woman released her hold gently, her hands lingering for just a moment longer. She took a step back and gestured towards the center of the chamber where another mirror lay, cracked and shimmering like before. "Do you remember why you started this journey?" she asked softly. "And do you still believe it is worth it?" Aiden felt a surge of emotion as he recalled every obstacle they had overcome. Each challenge had forged them into something stronger. Zara's response was a look that mirrored his own convictions. They had started with doubt, but through their struggles, they had found unshakable resolve. "We won't give up," Aiden said, looking at the dragon woman. "Not now. We've come this far," Zara added, her voice steady and resolute. "There's no going back." The dragon woman's expression softened further, her eyes filling with an unexpected tenderness. "Then let it be so." With those words, she stepped aside, allowing Aiden and Zara to see the cracked mirror more clearly. It was now surrounded by faint, ethereal light that seemed to dance along its edges. Aiden turned to Zara, their eyes meeting once more. They shared a silent nod, understanding each other's thoughts with a certainty that went beyond words. With a deep breath, they stepped forward and pressed their palms against the mirror again. This time, as they stepped through, the sensation was even warmer, almost tender. The world around them blurred into darkness, and when light returned, they found themselves in an entirely new place. The chamber they now stood in was a sanctuary of sorts, bathed in soft, golden light. Everything felt calm, almost serene. They turned to find the dragon woman behind them, her form now indistinct yet unmistakable. She stepped closer, and Aiden could sense that something had shifted between them. "Your decision is made," she said, her voice now a hushed whisper. "You choose not just what you will do, but who you are." She reached out again, placing her hand on both of theirs this time. The warmth was intense, almost overwhelming, a connection that seemed to sear their souls. Aiden and Zara held onto each other's hands tighter, feeling the pulse of shared strength and mutual support. "Do not fear what may come," she added softly, "for you are not alone." Her touch lingered, and then she stepped back, her form fading into the light around them. As her presence diminished, Aiden and Zara turned to face the new reality before them. It was as if the mirror's reflection had shown them their true selves, and now they were ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. "We can do this," Aiden whispered, his voice filled with renewed resolve. Zara nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Together, the dragon woman's final form disappeared entirely, leaving only a shimmering light in her place. As the light faded, Aiden and Zara felt a sudden clarity, a moment of pure understanding and connection. They stepped forward into the light, their hands still clasped tightly together. The world before them was now clear, their path laid out in perfect clarity. They had overcome every obstacle, but this final step was about more than just winning. Their journey had transformed them into individuals who were capable of facing any challenge side by side. With one last look at the fading reflection of the dragon woman's form, they stepped forward to face the next chapter of their lives together, unafraid and unwavering. The light faded, leaving Aiden and Zara standing together, looking into each other's eyes with a new depth of understanding and connection. "The end," she whispered, her breath warm against his cheek. His heart pounded in his chest, and he couldn't help but smile, knowing that their story was far from over. Hearts entwined, they stepped forward into the light. The light before them wasn't blinding but warm, welcoming them like an old friend with outstretched arms. It wasn't the kind of light that dazzles or confuses. It was gentle, almost nostalgic, wrapping around them as if to say, "Welcome home." As they stepped into it, the world around them shifted in a way that felt both familiar and strange. The air grew cooler, and the scent of earth mixed with faint whispers of wood smoke filled their nostrils. They were in a place where time didn't seem to flow in the same way. It was as if moments could stretch out or compress depending on the mood. Before them lay a path lined with soft green moss that glowed in hues of jade and emerald underfoot, reflecting the light from above. Trees towered around them, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind, but to their ears they were clear invitations. Each step they took was like walking through memories, yet each scene was fresh and new. A waterfall cascaded down from behind a thick curtain of vines and ferns, sending mist into the air that smelled of rain and pine. They approached it slowly, drawn by its rhythmic sound and the way it shimmered in the light. As they neared, it seemed to slow just for them, inviting them closer with the promise of a cool bath after a long journey. Yet, even as they stood there, something stirred in the back of their minds, a sense of purpose that felt tied to this place, but was hard to articulate. It wasn't a call to action so much as an invitation to experience, a chance to understand something fundamental about themselves and the world around them. As they wandered further along the path, it began to wind its way through small clearings where wildflowers bloomed in vibrant colors, and ancient stones marked pathways leading deeper into the forest's heart. Birds sang melodiously, their songs weaving together in harmony that was both beautiful and comforting. Around a bend, they found themselves at the edge of a vast lake, its surface smooth as glass and reflecting the golden light from above. The water shimmered with an ethereal glow, and ripples only barely disturbed its surface. Standing there by the water's edge, they felt their hearts expand with something akin to awe and wonder. Across the lake, a figure stood watching them. It was faint and indistinct, like a wisp of mist that could shape itself into a human form, and yet it was unmistakably aware of their presence. The figure beckoned them gently, its silent invitation a challenge to cross the still waters. The path leading from the shore to the far bank was barely more than an idea, shadows and whispers that seemed to form themselves as they wished them to be there. Without hesitation, they took the first step onto the surface, and it held firm beneath their feet. Each step was a decision, each one deeper into the mystery. As they walked across the water, it felt as though they were stepping between worlds, the mundane giving way to the extraordinary. The figure on the other side waited patiently, and when they reached it, it dissolved into tendrils of mist that floated up into the air and disappeared into the trees above. Left standing alone, with the vast expanse of water behind them, and a new forest awaiting in front, they knew their journey was far from over, but understood that every step taken here held more meaning than any other place. It was a journey of the heart, where choices were made not out of necessity, but from a deep understanding of what it meant to live fully. With a sense of resolve and an open heart, they continued on, ready to face whatever awaited them in this magical, timeless realm, knowing that each step would lead them closer to understanding not just their place within it, but the very essence of existence itself.